The format tonight is going to be 1.5 minutes. Everyone gets to open. We'll ask several questions that the league has written. They'll get 1.5 minutes to answer that in each person, and then also you'll have an additional time to comment either on what someone else has said or just to amplify, to add what your answer is. We'll get us through as many questions as we can. If you hear something or you don't hear a question, you really have a burning question from the audience, one of our league people have cards. You can write down your questions and bring them up, and we will try to answer those as best we can, although the priority, I think, at this point is to make sure everyone in Group 2 gets a shot at the questions that were offered in Group 1. And also, just real briefly, there are 2 open seats in Ward 1, and it's a 4-year term. It's nonpartisan. You will vote for 2 people on Election Day on your ballot. 4 people will advance to the general election. And the pay it's considered a part-time obligation. Right now, I think all the council members have other jobs. The compensation is $1,000 a month before taxes. And their obligation involves, they have regular meetings on the 2nd and 4th Monday evenings, plus they have committee meetings, and they have many obligations out in the community, so we'll be asking them at some point about their ability, how many hours a week will they be able to devote to the job, because it's a very intensive job, and then doing all the homework required. So we'll touch on that as well. So to start, I guess we'll start with the opening statements. You'll have 1.5 minutes, and we'll start with Ms. Regensburg.
Yes, my name is Rosalie Regensburg, and my resume is too long, so I'm just going to cut it real short. I grew up in a ranch in northern New Mexico. I graduated from high school. I joined the Marine Corps. I got married. I had 5 children. We moved to Wyoming. I went back to college. I graduated from the University of Wyoming with a BA in education. I taught school in all the schools here in Cheyenne for a while. Then I got a job with a Head Start as social services coordinator, working with low-income families. And then I went back to college, and I got my master's degree. And then I took additional courses, and I got my therapy license. And I got a job working with women who were abused and children, so I worked with them for a while, and then I started a perpetrators program through the courts, and I worked with the courts and the perpetrators for a few years, and then I saw there was a need to change things, so I, down in northern New Mexico, there was an opening for county commissioners, so I went into politics, and I won 2 terms, so I served 8 years as county commissioner there. I told you it was too long.
Okay, thank you. And if you have another 15 seconds if you want to use it, or if you think about something later, you'll have
I just wanted to add that I've always kept up with what's happening here at home. I call this home because we've been here 60 years. And I did write a lot of editorials of interest whenever I saw that there was a need for it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Turner.
Hello, and thank you for inviting me. My name is Mel Turner. There's a few things about me that I think is important you guys to know. The most important thing is I am married to a lovely woman. Hi, Felicia. I have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. I'm retired military, 21 years. In that time, I did focus on public safety and emergency management. I'm currently working at the VA, where I help make positive outcomes for our veterans. They served, I served, and I'm committed to making sure that we honor them. I'm on 3 boards currently. One of them is with my church. I've also am described as a person who has vision. I'm described as a person who is a planner, as a doer, and really I'm also someone who understands there's 4 things that makes the city in priority order. They're you and me, the citizens. The second thing is we are businesses to employ us as citizens. The next thing is we are as social media or social networks, churches or nonprofits or other groups. And finally, we are city employees. And if you elect me, I hope to be a city employee, because ultimately I'm working for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. White.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff White, and I was appointed to represent Ward 1 on City Council 8 months ago after Jimmy Valdez passed away. I believe that I was nominated by my colleagues in Ward 1 and approved by the governing body because of my combination of budget and management experience. I'm a deputy administrator for the Department of Workforce Services. We operate with 500 employees around the state and a $160 million annual budget. I think that working in this context every day has helped prepare me to address the difficult budget situation that we face in the upcoming months and years. Additionally, I founded the Dads Making a Difference program, which over the last 9 years here in Cheyenne has served 167 participants and graduated 142 of them. That's an 85% graduation rate for parenting adults living in poverty and with significant barriers to employment. I grew up in Cheyenne. My folks moved here in 1981. This has been my home for a long time, and as such, I have a deep passion for this community and love for its citizens. I've been a volunteer with Cheyenne Frontier Days for 22 years. I volunteered with the Animal Shelter, Boys and Girls Club, CASA, and the Laramie County Library. And I just run for this office because we're facing some difficult times, and I have strong feelings about what must be done and feel obliged to do all that I can to contribute and give back to our community.
Thank you very much. Ms. Collins.
My name is, well, first, thank you for having us all here tonight. My name's Tracy Collins. I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 1. I grew up on the south side. I've attended Cheyenne Public Schools, and I do have a degree from Laramie County Community College. Cheyenne's my chosen place to be. Cheyenne is my home. And my journey with City Council started last fall. I did apply to fill the position with the death of Councilman Valdez left, just like Jeff. I was one of the finalists for the position. Jeff was ultimately selected, but that didn't start my journey, and I started learning so much more about our city and what a difference we can make on a local level when we get involved and taking an interest and following through with things. I have been involved with a lot of different civic and charity organizations in Cheyenne over a number of years. For the past 6 years, I've been an executive board member of Habitat for Humanity. In my professional day job, I work with 80 to 100 small businesses on any given week. And so I really think that I've got those lines of communication that I can communicate and visit with a lot of people in a lot of different varieties of settings from a lot of different walks of life, a lot of different backgrounds, and that I can really bring those communication skills to the table of being a council member. I really think that this is a very good thing that we can all be involved, take part in our community, whether it is on council or whether it is just volunteering, but getting people involved is going to be the biggest thing for all of us.
Great. Thank you very much. We'll go ahead and start the round of questionings with Mr. Turner. Cheyenne has the largest, most complex municipal government in the state. Meanwhile, we heard comments last fall in the debate over whether to have a city administrator or not about the power of the mayor's office to limit the council's access to information and decision making. What is the proper balance of power between the council and the mayor? And I guess we're going to have a new mayor. What kind of mayor and a relationship with the mayor would you be looking for if you got elected?
So the first part of your question is the proper balance. I believe the proper balance is everyone that has been elected to help our city is to understand what they're committed to. Ultimately, we're committed to maintaining the city and making it flourish, helping it flourish by having a plan and a vision. And as far as ensuring that we work with the mayor to do so, part of that is making that voice heard, your voice. Making your voice heard into the mayor's ear, as well as the city officials, those that are hired within the city, to make sure that we are continually focusing on bettering our environment, our home, our streets, our law enforcement, your fire department, your parks, everything for you. Without that, I think we lose focus. Sadly, like we have been. If we don't have a plan, and we are not committed to making sure that we're supporting those priorities, you, me, then we're not going to take care of each of us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. White, do you want the question again, or do you?
No, I think I got it. Thank you. I think that the proper balance of power between the council and the mayor is one of communication, transparency, recognition that we're all in this together, and a willingness to work with one another. We need to focus on solving problems and seizing opportunities and not fighting all the time. When times are tough and people are angry or frustrated or hurting or uncertain, it seems to me that constant conflict may be good for politics. But what makes for good politics does not necessarily work in the real world. What works in the real world is cooperation and coming together and going to work for a singular purpose of getting something done. I worked with 3 of my opponents in this race to get the Duff Persian Crosswalk project passed and approved by council, which we did in late June, and construction on that will begin in the spring. We didn't check our brains at the door. We didn't stop disagreeing about things, but we had a purpose, and we got something done, and we worked together, and we were successful on that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Collins?
I think that a proper balance is a lot of what Jeff has just said. It is being able to work together and having that community involvement. And we're opening a new chapter. We know that there is a new mayor that will be taking office in January, and there is the potential for 6 new council members to be sitting up here on this dais where we're at tonight. And those lines of communication are the most integral and the most important. We may not always agree on things, but you've got to be able to communicate. And if you can sit down and say, these are my thoughts, these are my ideas. Okay, we don't agree, but what can we agree on? What can we bring together, whether it's from the citizens, whether it's from the mayor's office, whether it's from the city council, and bringing those ideas and finding a common ground that it may not be 100% satisfactory to anyone, but at least you can have that constructive conversation and find a happy medium where everybody can get along. And I think that just being demonstrated in our Ward 1 race right now, we have 13 people in our community that have taken an interest in this. And so I think that we're seeing a lot more interest from our community and from the people that we live next door to and that are in our neighborhoods. And so this way, with that interest, let's keep this momentum going, keep these conversations going between the mayor's office, between the council, between the neighbors, between everybody that we live with.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Regensburg, would you want to have that question again, or do you?
No, I'm fine, thank
Okay.
you. I agree that there has to be balance. One of the reasons that I got into this race was because a couple of times I just didn't like the way that the mayor was just put to the side, and I felt that he should have had more cooperation from the city council and from the community. Just recently there was a negative article on the mayor, and I just was really upset because he's only one person, and he can't do anything by himself. If he doesn't get any support, and if the community doesn't back him, then his hands are tied. And so I feel that more cooperation between not only the council and with the mayor, more support for the mayor, but also because he's at the head, but also from the community. And that's how I feel.
All right, thank you. And does anyone want to take advantage of the a little extra time to expand or comment?
Well, I would just point out that in the 8 months that I've been on city council, the mayor has been very gracious and very polite and friendly. But he tends to meet with the president of council and vice president of council. At no time has he invited all the 3 representatives from wards 1, 2, or 3 to meet and to discuss pertinent issues. And that's something that I hope changes when a new mayor takes office.
Okay, Thank you very much. Just, can we briefly touch on whether this is really a part-time job? How much time can you devote to it? How much time do you expect to have to do it? And Mr. White can actually talk from experience here, but how much time during the week do you have, in addition to the committee meetings, all the other work in the community and constituent reaching out to them? What does the week look like for you if you get elected? That kind of a thing. And we'll start with Mr. White.
Well, if you think this is a part-time job, think again. You can ask my wife on that. Between full council meetings, committee meetings, board and commission meetings where you are the council liaison, communication with constituents via email and telephone, you're invited to events that I feel you have a responsibility as a civic representative to show up to as many as you can. You spend about 30 to 35 hours a week, sometimes more, sometimes less, depending on if you have committee of the whole meetings or how long full council or committee meetings last.
On top of your day job.
On top of your day job.
Thank you. Ms. Collins.
Well, and I think Jeff is going to be able to state it the best. He is currently holding a City Council Ward 1 position, but I would anticipate you're definitely going to have at least a minimum of 30 hours. You've got your meetings every week that you're going to attend. You have appointments to the different boards and commissions that you are the liaison. You do need to be open and available to speak to your constituents, whether it's through email, whether it's on the phone, whether it is in personal visits when you're out in the community attending events. And those are important things that you need to be able to take on and be willing to do. I think that all of us have probably considered that. I know I have personally. I've looked at my life. I've spoken with my employer, and my employer is very supportive of this and said, I can do this. My family supports it. My employer supports it. And I know that I'm ready to dedicate at least that 30 hours to 40 hours a week. But I think more importantly, you take as much time as it takes to get the job done. I don't think you can actually put an actual hour time frame on it. You are here to do a job, you're serving your community, and you stay and you work until the job is done.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Regensburg?
Well, I feel that now that I'm retired, I have more time than anything, but I'm used to working all the time. When I was a therapist, I would work 24/7, even though I was a supervisor, and I'd travel 100 miles every night, sometimes through ice and snow, transporting clients, so my work was never ended. And right now that I'm retired, I'm writing a book. I keep myself occupied. I'm on the parish council. I communicate with, I attend all the grandkids, their school functions and everything, so I'm used to working full-time, so whatever's required of me, I can comply.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Turner?
I don't anticipate this being a second job. I anticipate this being an act of service, and I understand what that means. I'm committed to serving my community, serving my constituents, if elected, because that's what it takes. And if provided that opportunity, I actually want to do something unique. Before, when we were talking, when there was a discussion about how can we bring people together, how we can look at inclusivity, one of the things that I am looking at doing and wanting to do, whether I'm elected or not, I want to see if we can participate in this, having a Movies in the Park at Romero Park. Having a Ward 1 forum in these chambers or somewhere else where we can live stream to see if that can happen, where we take phone calls so we can get the information out to our constituents, to everyone that wants to have a voice, that feels that they can't have a voice. I want to do that. And I think that takes a little bit of ingenuity, a little bit of time, and I'm willing to do that and looking forward to it.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody want to expand or comment on another person? All right, we'll move on. Everyone, well, downtown is in your ward, and so your constituents are particularly interested in revitalizing, helping maybe strengthen current businesses, bring in additional business. So I guess the question is, what can the city do? What should the city do with its whatever resources it has to bring to bear, public funding, public agencies? What do you see the city being able to do and, in fact, obligated to do to help the downtown area? And we'll start with Ms. Collins.
I really think that the city is here to not necessarily be able to twist anybody's arm to say you're going to move to our town and you're going to put a business here. But realistically, I think that the city needs to focus on our infrastructure with our roads, our buildings, maintaining that, our safety, police, fire, our water, and our sanitation, and our city employees that keep those functioning on a day-to-day basis. I believe that that's what we have as a foundation. It's the core of our community. If we don't have those items, we're not going to be able to grow and expand the downtown, out north, the south, the west edge, any of those things. I think that what we really need to focus on is let's make sure we've got that strong core foundation. And once we have that strong foundation, we can continue to build a really strong community, a really strong Cheyenne. And there's lots of different developments that are going on in Cheyenne. It's not just about downtown. Downtown is important and it's integral, but I think that we as a city government really need to focus on our core foundation overall for everyone, because if we don't have that, we're not going to have any place to continue to build this community.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Regensburg, downtown development and the role of the city to help out.
Well, we've been here 60 years, and even though I've gone out of state to work, I've always come back, and I've seen it really grow in leaps and bounds. I remember when we had the little family cafes right by the depot, and now we have this big patio or whatever it is that where everybody has their concerts, and I think it's great. I've seen it really grow, and as I'm out in the community, there's that complaint about that hole. They say some people even say, "Well, that's haunted," and somebody needs to pray over it, or they need to do something. So whether it's a parking lot or whether it's the Children's Museum, which I would like to see someday, but something needs to be done there. And wherever there's extra money, I think they should invest it in taking care of that, because that seems to be right now about the only complaint that everybody has. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Turner.
I would actually ask everyone to sort of envision something. Think about downtown. Think about a place that you would want to come to with your children, with your family, with relatives that are visiting from out of town. Imagine our military members, instead of traveling down to Fort Collins to spend their money, they spend it here. I think we can make that happen. And how the city can help is create a fertile environment for that to happen. Certain things like not only maintaining businesses, but attracting new businesses by leading and inspiring our groups like the Chamber of Commerce, CDA, Cheyenne Leads, the Visit Cheyenne, and nonprofits to participate in a vision or an idea that has a plan, not a one-year plan, not a 5-year plan, but a multi-year plan, keeping the downtown area fertile for business and attracting revenue that's going to help pay for things that we need in the future, because we can no longer count on our state to do it. So we have to rely on ourselves. And I think a plan will allow that to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White.
When you talk about downtown development, and this is an issue that's very important to me because downtown Cheyenne is the heartbeat of our city. And it has needed some shock paddles for quite a long time to get the heartbeat going again. I think that the first thing that you do is you invest in transportation infrastructure. And when I talk about transportation, I'm talking about movement. I'm talking about movement of goods, movement of people, movement of information. So any money that the city spends on roads or data movement are going to be automatic economic benefits to the city. We know this because when Leeds or the Chamber goes out and do studies about business recruitment, transportation infrastructure is almost number one on all their list and has been for the last 25 years. I think that we can also do a better job of listening to business owners and work with economic and business groups to create an atmosphere that's business friendly and advocates for revitalizing the downtown core. But those groups have to work together too. Now, if you take a look at this recent downtown core plan, which I think is a good plan, it was developed and proposed by Leeds, the Chamber, Visit Cheyenne, and the DDA. Well, that's the first time all four groups have come together to put forth such a plan. Why has it taken so long? They should be working together constantly. They should be working together all the time to try and get downtown revitalized again.
Okay, thank you. And it's sort of with the first group, I noticed the absence of discussion about the $85,000 parking study. Just briefly, does anyone want to comment on that? Yes.
Well, I'd like to expand also with that.
Okay.
I did attend that public meeting, and I think that it's a great thing to look at how we can make room for a lot of people to be downtown. As Jeff pointed out also, the Downtown Core Development Plan has some really good ideas and suggestions in it. I think maybe what we need to focus on is pull some of those that may be a bit more on our infrastructure and safety needs and some of the quality of life. Let's focus where we've got that money. But with the parking study, it is a great way to get more people downtown.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else want to address the parking issue? Is that something, a good use of city money to help the downtown development, I guess, getting at that same idea?
As I've been, may I?
Yeah, sure.
As I've been around the community, one of the complaints is that there's no parking downtown, and that something should be done about it. So if there's monies that to do that, that would be a good project to work on.
Okay. Anyone else want to comment or?
Yeah, I'll go real quick. I supported funding the parking study, and the main reason is because there hasn't been a study done for our downtown since 1990. I think our downtown's changed a lot in 26 years. Parking is an obstacle. We have been informed by the folks doing this study that they will come back with specific recommendations and specific strategies to implement, and I would hope that the governing body and the mayor will take those suggestions to heart and progress.
Well, the next city council will have maybe a shot at it. Do you want to comment also, Mr. Turner?
Yes, ma'am. Thank
Okay.
you. If you build it, they will come. It's as simple as making sure that, again, the city creates a fertile environment to attract those businesses. It's winter around here. It gets cold. Many people do not want to walk a great distance to be entertained or to take advantage of the opportunities that the businesses will provide. If we're going to be serious about business, we have to be serious about attracting business. The infrastructure, just much like Jeff had talked about, that is vital. The roads to get to the parking to get to the businesses. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And maybe further developing that theme is that quite often, year after year, it's a perennial issue, is a complaint you hear that the regulations, codes, and fees are an impediment to development, and people, calling for changes, if not loosening, at least changes. So I guess the question, and we'll start with Ms. Regensburg again, is going to be what changes, if any, would you like to see to the codes, regulations, fees, or other restrictions put on businesses or other development in Cheyenne?
Well, I think right now, I think everything seems to be okay. I think I've always felt that codes are necessary in order to have order. If you don't have order, you'll have chaos. And so I feel that the codes are okay for right now.
Okay,
So I feel.
thank you. Mr. Turner?
So part of my preparation was to spend some time with our city officials to figure out what they do and how our money is spent, simply put. So one of the things that I had learned was about impact fees and how important and vital they are to making sure that we can not unnecessarily imbalance our funds, meaning as we spread, and if we don't have those parts of the city participate in that revenue, meaning the taxes, then you are going to be paying for that. If we have a part of the city that doesn't participate in the fire department, our police department, our roads, and our trash, guess who's paying for them? You and me. Our impact fees need to be looked at. If we're going to grow, we need to make sure that whatever we add on to our city, that they participate in the city. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White.
Well, the Chamber of Commerce conducted an independent study that was released last June 2015, and that study found that with regard to Cheyenne's planning fees, across the board, our fees are lower than Casper, Gillette, Greeley, Colorado, and Rapid City, South Dakota. Lower on annexation, lower on zone changes, lower on variances, lower on platting, lower on impact fees, lower on site plan reviews. So the very least we can do is consider making those fees equitable with surrounding communities of the same size. I think there's also a perception by the development community that the UDC, Uniform Development Code, is inflexible, and I think that some of the blame for that lies on the part of the city. There has been some inconsistent communication, inconsistent messaging. I talk to developers all the time where they come to me and say, my project got approved by the Planning Commission, and then it got approved by a building inspector, but then another building inspector came out and gave me the thumbs down. If I were a small businessman or a developer, that would infuriate me. So you've got to be more consistent in your communication and in how you're relaying that information to the developers.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Collins.
You know, I think that the Uniform Development Code is in place for a reason. There have been situations, safety issues, as was addressed in the first flight of candidates here, which is very important. But I also think that with the fees, as Mr. White has pointed out, we may be less than our surrounding areas, but I don't know that it's necessarily one of those that let's just increase them to increase them. Let's make sure that we're taking care of the costs. If it's costing the city money to do this, then we need to adjust those fees to make sure that the city is able to, the city is not paying out additional money for these to make sure that happens. In regards to building inspections, I think that, as Mr. White did point out, a lot of small business owners, which I work with a lot of them, are frustrated. They're doing expansions or they're putting up a business, and one inspector tells them one thing, next time they come back to inspect, no, it should have been done another way. I think we really need to look at putting in place a standard operating procedure or a standard operating manual for those people that are doing those inspections, so that even when a business is here, it makes it business friendly. You're going to get the same answer from the same inspector or from the same person, even though it may be different people coming out, they're still going to be looking for the same thing. And I think that's something that we really need to look at and maybe put a standard operating procedure manual in place for some of those codes and regulations.
Okay, thank you. And does anyone want to add or comment further?
Yeah, I just wanted to make one addition. I support streamlining regs and codes as long as you're not jeopardizing safety. The main thing that I would like to see us do is make sure our staff provides quality customer service and doesn't make the process too onerous for a developer.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to add one extra thing. And I do believe that we can, without using our own funds, without using your revenue to create a job, we can use grant funds to create a position within maybe the Commerce or maybe the DDA that would allow this individual to communicate to new businesses or businesses that are building up on some of these standards. I completely agree with what you said, Tracy, as far as having a standard that everyone can adhere to so they can be successful in starting up their new business.
Okay, thank you. We're ready then. We'll move on to another question. We've already sort of touched on the decreasing revenue. Our sales tax revenue projections are down. And it seems like potholes is the sort of the topic du jour. Everyone wants to talk about potholes. Everyone's worried about them. What about, and so moving beyond that, there are a lot of other issues that are going to come before you. In time of restrictive revenue, where do the other kind of priorities that might be considered the softer priorities, historic preservation, bicycle lanes, bicycle paths, those other kind of things that might be termed amenities, where do those fall? How do we take care of those? And we will start with Mr. Turner.
With you? I think so.
Mr. Turner.
Did you say Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, right, yeah, because we started last time with you, so yeah,
Sorry.
shuffling along there, okay.
I believe the best answer is given to me by the voters. It's taking those priorities out to the voters and saying, here's what needs to be done. How do you want to prioritize them? That goes back to the plan that I spoke about. If we're going to have these great ideas, we have to determine what do we need versus what do we want. In your budget, if you have $1 to spend and your needs cost 75 cents, that means you have 25 cents to go ahead and splurge on your wants. We as voters have to determine how to prioritize those needs and how to figure out how to spend that particular quarter on that want. So my idea is to ask you what your ideas are. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White.
Well, I think you have to take, at least the approach that I try to take is that you have to take a balanced approach with regard to fiscal needs and wants. Now, the primary purpose of a city government is to provide safety to its citizens and health services. So once those needs are met, then you can start looking at the wants. I completely support Greenway expansion. If it wasn't for Greenway, the Greenway that we have, we probably wouldn't have gotten the Lowe's distribution center. That was a big recruitment tool to bring that business in. So you can't just completely ignore beautification, recreation, trails. You have to balance it with a responsible approach to needs and wants, and that's what I try to do.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
You know, I think that really with our priorities and with the budget shortfalls that we're anticipating from the state of Wyoming, we really need to prioritize and be fiscally responsible first and foremost, taking care of our priorities. As both Mel and Jeff have said, that we've got to make sure we've got our infrastructure, we've got our safety, our water in place, and that our city employees are taken care of with that. With that being said, if there is anything left over, because that's going to be something that we don't know what the state's going to be giving us. I mean, the city of Cheyenne's getting 50 to 60% of its revenue from the state in some sort of mineral severance, royalties, and taxes. And so we really need to look at what are we going to have available? And then we need to wisely decide how we're going to proceed. There are a lot of different groups and organizations in town and maybe individuals that can help support doing grants, taking on projects, getting them initiated, getting them started, just like Mr. Laybourne did with the Greenway project initially. And so a lot of that may be just getting involved on a personal level. I own a historic home. You mentioned historic preservation. I bought it. It was a foreclosure. It had been empty and vacant for 2 years, but that's something that I took on a personal level that I wanted to do. So I think if we can all get involved in our own level, maybe not monetarily, but at least with that time and effort, because if the money's not there, time and effort, we all have some of that we can put forth in our community. And that may be the biggest asset that we've got for all of us right now.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Regensburg.
Well, I've always been a biggie for historical preservation. I think that we should preserve our old buildings because that's what makes the city great. And so I would go for that.
Okay, well, I've just got a question from the audience, and just sort of maybe just quickly insert this, if you can maybe just address, people were talking about the priorities, health and safety. We all know potholes is up there. What about snow removal from downtown? We had some situations this winter where it was kind of treacherous just to walk down the sidewalk. So where does snow removal come in this array of public safety issues? Let's do maybe a quick round on this. Maybe start with Mr. White. Where is snow removal at the top or somewhere in the middle or down below?
Well, snow removal certainly is a public safety issue. I mean, you said it yourself. If you can't walk on city sidewalks, then what's the point of even going downtown? And that's probably an issue that keeps a lot of people from going downtown in the winter. So what I would do, what I hope the incoming mayor, whomever that might be, takes a hard look at is our snow removal program up to snuff? Is there something that can be done to improve it? Should it be left with Clean and Safe, Board of Public Works, or should it be put under sanitation? Those types of things should be looked at carefully. I think we should also maybe explore some best practices from other communities with similar harsh climates such as ours, like North Dakota or Minnesota, and see kind of what their plan is, and not be afraid to purge, so to speak. But I think it definitely is a public safety issue, and it definitely needs to be looked at and re-examined, because what is currently taking place, and I know that the crews after the blizzard in March were working nonstop 24/7, but I think some improvements can be made.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Collins?
Unfortunately, we live in Cheyenne, Wyoming. We never know what our weather's going to be. Sunday, Monday night, we were in low 50s in the middle of July, and the day before, we'd been at 100 degrees. Our winter has been very temperamental, shall we say. We've had a little bit of everything and a lot of severe storms this winter, and I think it taught us a very valuable lesson that we haven't had in a long time, is that, okay, we've got a storm, we've got some nice weather, where do we go? What do we do with this? And I think it gets back to communication, is what do our surrounding areas do? Let's pick up that phone, let's talk to them, let's get down there, let's talk to the business owners. Some of them were upset they didn't have parking in front of their businesses because there were snow drifts that were piled there. Was it necessarily the city employees' fault? Not necessarily. We had so much snow that initially it had to go there. We didn't anticipate that second round coming at us. And so some of that is also going to be looking at what may be the best option for us to do. I don't have a solid answer for you right now, but I think borrowing ideas and looking to surrounding communities and opening those lines of communication, whether it is just with our neighboring areas or even Alaska, for heaven's sakes, they're going to be dealing with a lot more of that. They probably have a really good plan in place, but let's get out there. Let's talk to each other, talk to our city crews, talk to our local businesses, and talk to our surrounding governments on what they think works well for them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Regensburg, snow removal downtown.
Well, snow removal has always been my priority. I feel that maybe the city can even go the second mile and check on the elderly, because sometimes they can't get out of their homes because, and I know that that we all have our private driveways and all that, but I guess I'm just used to it. I've always been an advocate for people, and like when I was a county commissioner and I was out in the country, there were some elderly that couldn't get out, and all they had to do was give me a phone call, and I'd even send my manager on horseback to get them food and water and medicine. So I think that we should go the second mile and make it a priority to make sure that our streets are well swept and the snow is removed so that nobody will have an accident.
Thank you. Mr. Turner?
We need safe, clear streets. I don't know if anyone's ever tried to call 911 and expect for somebody to come rescue you or to help you or to assist you when the streets aren't clear. It's going to take a little bit longer and may not come as quickly as you would like. That's not going to work for us to be safe. So we definitely need that. I have been in my travels into smaller areas where, much like volunteer fire departments, there are volunteer crews that come out and help certain areas out. It's all hands on deck, if you will, where people come together and commit to taking care of something. Now, I don't know necessarily, again, I am not well researched on this, but I don't mind taking the time to go ahead and do the research, much like what was stated before by Tracy and Jeff. Let us take a look at what could be done. Can the city purchase equipment through grants of some type? And then, I don't know if you noticed, a lot of trucks out there and a lot of people who have trucks. I think it would be quite interesting if we could get a small group of dedicated citizens that would be interested in helping out.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone want to add anything at this point, or I think since we're talking about what can we do with limited money, question we asked last time, and hear what you have to say about because as Ms. Collins mentioned, we rely on the legislature for. It's actually kind of unpredictable session to session, but we are very reliant on money from the state to supplement our local tax income. The legislature legislature is squeezed as much as any I've ever seen it. So what would you like the legislature to do? Is there anything you would ask of them as far as their funding or any other authorities you'd like the city to have to help us get through this tight fiscal times? And I guess we'll start with Ms. Collins.
You know, really, the legislature is not going to be able to do any more than what they're doing right now. I think we've probably gotten as much this year as we're going to get, and I would anticipate that next year will be less than what we got this year. And beyond that, every community in Wyoming is going to be saying the same thing. And so really, I think this is where we need to start relying on ourselves. I know there's different city divisions that get money from grants, that have federal grants that come through for them, different grants from other areas. And maybe that's something that we need to explore as a city council and as a mayor. Are there other sources of revenue that we can rely on? I think another thing that's very important that's happened recently that Mr. Camargo had mentioned earlier is Comic-Con. That was something that was brand new, that was brought to our town. Everyone's familiar with Cheyenne Frontier Days, which is little over a week away. That is a fantastic event that draws tourists, draws that revenue, and draws that money into Cheyenne. But Comic-Con was set up by a group of individuals, and it put Cheyenne on the map. Cheyenne was probably never known for Comic-Con. We've got Denver, New York, Chicago, LA. Well, look at the people that paid attention to Cheyenne that came here. And that was the idea of individual citizens that pulled that original concept together. Let's keep those kind of ideas fresh and going. And what else can we do like that that's going to generate interest in our community?
Okay, thank you. Ms. Regensburg, what would you ask of the state legislature to help Cheyenne?
Well, I feel that Cheyenne, Wyoming, Cheyenne, the city of Cheyenne, cannot isolate itself from the state or the nation. I feel that we need to keep in touch with our legislators, and we need to keep in touch with our elected officials at the national level. We need to let them know what's happening here in our city, and we need to let them know what problems we have so that they can help. And one good example is, and by the way, I'm very upset with every elected official in the state of Wyoming right now because of that Medicaid expansion. I feel that if everybody would have left their comfort zone and got out there and lobbied those legislators, I feel that maybe it would have become a reality. And that's one of the things that the people complain about, is that we get them elected and then we don't see them. They don't know what's affecting us. And look at this example with Medicaid expansion. It didn't pass, and there's over 20,000 people that are going to suffer because of it. They're already feeling the burden. And not only that, but our hospitals are having to lay off people. And so we need to get out of our comfort zone if we're elected and just get involved with the people at the state level and the national level and let them know this is what's needed and push for it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner.
So before there was a state, there were territories, smaller territories, and then through those territories it was consolidated and became a state. So I guess what I'm saying is let's not wait for the state to do their job. As a matter of fact, I wouldn't say that we should ask legislators for help. I think we should teach legislators how we do business here. We're the capital city. Let's show them how we work together. Let's show them how we diversify our revenue streams and improve our businesses so that we don't rely on outside, whether it be the state, whether it be the feds, that we take care of ourselves. And I think we have the capability of doing that through a plan, through vision, and through teamwork.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. White.
Well, I think when it comes to state funding, make no bones about it, it's going to be difficult. I think we stand to lose $4.6 million right now from state funding. That's today. That could change with the next consensus revenue estimating group, the Craig report, which does the budget forecasting for the governor and state legislature. So we could lose even more. Sales tax revenues are also down. We could lose out on there. So what government leaders should do in tight fiscal times is what families do when they manage their budgets during tight fiscal times. And what does a family do when a family member loses a job or incurs an unexpected expense such as a car repair? They tighten their belts, and they rely on savings before they ask other people to foot the bill. Cheyenne should do the same. One thing that we can do immediately, I think, is implement a 3-month hiring moratorium, not a freeze, but a moratorium. And so you take a look at the jobs and duties that your staff is doing. Is the vacant position one that does essentially need to be filled, or is it something that maybe we can look at cutting? But as far as I'm concerned, staff layoffs would be last resort.
Okay, thank you. And anyone want to add or comment further? And yes?
The one thing that I did want to add was that we do need to look at alternate revenue streams. And by that, I'm talking about historic districts, museum districts, economic districts, TIF zones, tax increment funding zones. And, if the voters are amenable to it, perhaps a seventh penny tax. But that should be in the hands of the voters.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll get to the last question that I asked the first group, so we'll wrap up that, and then we have another one from the audience about the non-discrimination ordinance. Would you support a non-discrimination ordinance here in Cheyenne? And we'll start with Ms. Regensburg.
I don't feel it's needed. When it was suggested, I wrote against it, and the reason for that is that if you start catering to one group, the rest are going to feel left out, and I think it's up to the individual. If you feel discriminated against, then that's your problem. You're lacking in self-esteem, or something's wrong somewhere along the way. I always keep the words of Eleanor Roosevelt in mind when she said, nobody can make me feel inferior without my consent. And so that's what I feel is happening. I feel that whoever feels discriminated against, and I know of a particular group that they were trying to pass an ordinance for, I feel it wasn't necessary because it's up to the individual and how they feel. And I don't think it's necessary. I was very much against it. I wrote against it, and I'm still against it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Turner.
I believe the ultimate decision relies on you as voters. It is not my will, it is your will that needs to be determined to figure out how as a city we are going to come together. Now, those are my views. As a citizen here as well, I'm not going to force my views onto any of you. I believe we do need to come together. I think Mr. Carmago said it best. Look at the seal behind me. We are the equality state. Being a minority myself, being here, I have been treated with nothing less than respect and kindness. There are others who don't feel that same way. We rally around those men and women who are kept from basic rights of being treated fairly, education, housing. We support them. But if you, as citizens, feel the need that we need a law, an ordinance to pass that, when ultimately the law is up to the state, but an ordinance to secure that, let your will be done.
Okay, thank you, Mr. White.
I've worked as a compliance officer for 5 years with the State of Wyoming Labor Standards Department. So I investigated discrimination complaints under the Fair Employment Practice Act, Civil Rights Act, Voting Rights Act, Age Discrimination Act, ADA. I've been in support of a non-discrimination ordinance since from the very beginning, long before I ever served on city council. I believe that nobody in a workplace should be judged on anything other than the quality of their work. I've supported the ordinance in city council. I did have some objections to some of the language that was in a proposed ordinance, as did some of my colleagues, which is why it was not brought forward. If that is resolved, I will support it. As my opponent, Mr. Turner, mentioned, we are the equality state. We should do everything in our power to maintain and act like we are the equality state. We should be taking the lead on this issue and not following.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
I believe that discrimination doesn't have any place in our day-to-day lives, in our state, in the equality state, in the capital city of our equality state. And I think that, I would support a non-discrimination ordinance. I think that it would need to be very carefully crafted and worded so that it is extending that non-discrimination to all individuals here. Obviously, any state and federal laws or non-discrimination items that might pass could and probably would supersede the cities, but at least if the city is willing to stand up and make a stand, I would support that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone want to follow up, more comment? We got this last one before, I guess, we do the wrap-up, and just very briefly, it was concerning invest more in our youth. In the first group, one of the people up there talked about how his daughter thought she needed to leave Cheyenne to have opportunity, and of course, that's the older youth. But I guess we're talking about what do you feel we need to do to invest more in our youth? And if you want to address the younger group or the young adults, I'll leave it up to you, and we will start with Mr. Turner.
I'm a recent graduate of Leadership Wyoming. We spent time going through several different counties, several different areas, and I learned a lot. One thing that I learned is the importance of trade. Educating our trade, AC repair, masonry, carpentry, welding, those things are vital. If our youth, our future leaders, are going to be leaving Wyoming to chase the dream, to be into a place of opportunity, and they can't find that here, we aren't going to be able to take care of what we need to take care of. So we need to create a fertile environment. Part of that is working with LCCC, looking at a future and figuring out where we're going to be having holes in our trades, having them prepare for the future so we can have an opportunity for those people, for those men and women, those future leaders, our future citizens. I believe it's vital that we take the time to do this. We have several folks that I'm familiar with, like I said, had been in the military, and I had worked with several people who had been educated, and they felt that they had to leave because there was no opportunity here. And for some, there was no housing available. So quickly put, if we have housing, we have opportunities available, that means we're going to keep our folks here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. White.
Well, as a person who actually moved back to Cheyenne in his 20s, I'm the exception to the rule. I wanted to live here. I wanted to make Cheyenne my home. Many of my friends didn't, and they headed south, 100 miles south, and they continue to do so. Cheyenne Leads did a study a couple of years ago. 22% of our workforce commutes. 22%. That's people who don't own homes, don't invest in the community, don't volunteer, no property taxes, no sales taxes. That's a huge segment. Okay? So when you talk about investing in our youth, Mel hit it on the head. I think that you have to have affordable housing, period, and you have to have opportunities. And you have to look at your wants. You have to look at your greenway expansion. You have to look at recreational opportunities. You have to look at diversity in restaurants. You have to look at entertainment. You have to look at a broad tapestry. And are you doing enough to address those things? Now, the city government can't do everything, but we can create an atmosphere. We can show that we care. We can keep the momentum going that's currently going on in downtown right now with a mural program, a re-ride program, the West Edge development, the steam plant development. Those are really good things. The reinvigoration of the Asher facility. So there's some good momentum going. There's a lot of great things happening. We just need to make sure it continues.
Thank you, Ms. Collins.
A lot along the lines of what Mr. Turner and Mr. White have said. I mean, we need to make sure that there are some of those opportunities, the affordable housing. We want to be able to keep the workforce here. But I think at one point in time, I know I swore I'd never come back to this town. Well, I'm not sure that I ever left. And I believe that a lot of people, you might step away from it and come back and say, it's really not too bad. But when we look at a lot of the exciting things that are going on, just like Jeff has pointed out, that revitalization with the Asher downtown and the mural program, even the Comic Con, that's something that makes a huge appeal to the younger community. And that's a draw that even lets them know, hey, we're here. This is Cheyenne, Wyoming. It does have cool and exciting things. We're not just an Old West town. We do offer the world's largest outdoor rodeo, but on that same coin, we've got Comic Con. So it's not just, don't segment us into just one area. Don't put us in that box. But we've got a wide variety of options available for people. And so let's keep exploring that and see what else we can do to keep that attraction for other people and showcasing how many different talents and different things that actually go on here, and trying to get that communication to involve people to do that, I think, is very important.
Thank you. Ms. Regensburg.
Well, one of the things that I would do if I was elected is to get a grant going, write a proposal on the grant to get young people to work. Like I've done, I know that the city has they're grant writers, but I've done projects like Keep America Beautiful, and I have all the teenagers involved. And not only are they getting a little bit of money in their pocket, but they're also beautifying the city or the county or wherever they live. A lot of people have given Mr. Laybourne here a lot of credit for trying to clean up Crow Creek. And so that's still a big concern for the people on the south side. They say, well, look at that dirty water that sits there. It's going to bring mosquitoes, and mosquitoes bring disease, and so that's a much-needed project. So I said, well, let me see whether I get elected or not elected. I said, I can get to work and write a grant, and we'll see how we can get these young people involved and clean it up. But they do give Mr. Laybourne credit for trying to do it. So that's what I would do, is I would write grants if I had to, and I know the city has their grant writers. Mm-hmm. But elected or not, I'm still planning to do it because it's much needed.
Okay, thank you very much. And there's no follow-up? You do? Okay, sure.
I would like to.
Help yourself.
So I made this city my home. The reason why I made this city my home after retiring from the military is because I realized how precious a jewel this place is. I feel, though, that in order to keep this the jewel, the safe home environment that we have to look at growing. Again, making that connection of the state is not helping us out with our resources and our revenue. We have to grow. People go down south to spend their money. People go down south to live, Fort Collins in Colorado. They're benefiting from that. We need that we need to keep that here.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, Kate Bolt.
I did have one thing I wanted to add. There are a lot of young, energetic, and talented people that are working on this issue. I think your daughter's one of them, actually. And take a look at our Depot Plaza. If you go down there on Friday nights, that is now the epicenter of the community. So there was a lot of talk about, but it just sits there in the wintertime. Well, this, because of the creativity of a lot of young folks, there's going to be an ice skating rink there this wintertime. There's going to be a splash park there next summer. There's going to be lighting on 17th Street between Cary and Central now by the Christmas parade. So there are a lot of folks trying to come up with solutions to address this problem. Sorry, I went over my time.
Ms. Collins, did you want to add something? Or?
Well, and I think that one thing that we're seeing a lot of inroads that is really exciting right now is a lot of the different businesses that are coming into downtown. We have several new restaurants. We've got that growth there. And with some of the plans with the downtown core development, where, as Jeff pointed out, that they've got some plans with that some of the youth have brought forward. And through the organizations, let's get out there. Let's toot our own horn. Let's shout it out to the Front Range that we've got some of these. We've got ethnic restaurants. We've got barbecue. We've got different activities going on here. Come up and see us. We're not going to come see you anymore.
Well,
That could be a
on that note, it's time to give your closing statements, 1.5 minutes, and we'll start with Mr. White.
Thank you, Marguerite. I just wanted to thank everybody for attending tonight and for this opportunity for all the candidates to get together and discuss this election. You know, this election is very important, and it's going to decide the future of our community for the next 4 years and beyond. And I'm going to campaign the way that I've tried to govern for the last 8 months, and that is by listening, learning, engaging, and communicating with everybody I come into contact with, whether it be the citizens of Ward 1 or citizens throughout the community. You know, I want to represent and build coalitions that can advance all of our city's neighborhoods, no matter where they're located. And another thing that I want to make sure that I include is diversity and access. And I want to make sure that those two things are always part of the conversation that I have with whomever I come into contact with. The residents of Ward 1 can always count on me to be thoughtful, caring, and open about my stances and decision-making processes. And over the last 8 months, I think I've learned that one of the most important aspects of being on City Council is to listen, ask questions, treat people with respect, and make the best decisions that you can. Whatever approach I take, whether it be researching an issue or casting a vote, I always try and keep in mind that I work for the people of Ward 1, and that is a tremendous honor and a responsibility that I do not take lightly. Thank you.
Thank you
Just
very
in
much.
time.
Well done. Ms. Collins.
Once again, I want to say thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting this forum on and being able to give our community information that they can make their own decisions with. And I think that in closing, I want to serve Cheyenne. Cheyenne is my chosen place. It is my home. I want to be able to give back to the community and do this. I think that having lived here my whole life, I'm a very accessible person. I want to step out. I want to be able to do something for my community that has always been there for me. I am really excited to say that, you know, regardless of how the election turns out, I have at least learned the process and a lot of the procedures since I have been following City Council since September. And I would really encourage anyone in this election. I know that we have 10 candidates for mayor plus a write-in, 13 candidates in Ward 1. Anyone that's gotten involved in this process, congratulations, and keep this momentum up, because I think it's showing an enthusiasm that all of us need to take that step out of our little comfort zones, and let's get out, get involved in our community, ask ourselves, what can we do to help make our community a better place? And so let's all focus on that, not just on our wards, which I do want to represent Ward 1, but it is about our entire community and all of us being able to work together, open those lines of communication, and keep our town moving forward so we can continue to prosper and grow.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Regensburg.
Well, I believe what my instructors at LCCC always told me, keep in mind the big picture. And I believe that in keeping in mind the big picture, we have to not only concentrate on Ward 1 if we're elected, but on everything that's affecting the citizens of Cheyenne. And for that matter, get involved with the legislators and make sure that that we push them or encourage them to do the things that to pass the legislation that's necessary to help everyone be safe. And health and safety are my priority. I also believe that the city needs to give more recognition to the city employees, like we have the fire departments. They have the rescue team, which is the best thing that has happened in Cheyenne, Wyoming. They respond within minutes. They have saved numberless lives, and I feel that sometimes they're not really that much appreciated. And then we have our policemen, and in light of what happened in Dallas, I'm right now working on a grant to, a few years back, there was a flood, and as you know, one of our sheriff deputies was drowned trying to save a little girl. I want to see a statue of him somewhere in Wyoming, and I'll find a way to do it. So that's my final say. And I've always been an advocate for people. So even if I'm not elected, the whole community, especially in Ward 1, especially on the south side, they know that I'm there, and they call me, and they know they call me at 12 o'clock at night and say, I need advice, where do I go? They know that I know all the resources in the city of Cheyenne, having been a social services coordinator. So that's my.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Turner?
It's hard being the last person. I think the things I believe that I think you would like to know is the person that you want to elect wants to have good judgment. You want to make sure that they're accountable to standards. I believe you want somebody with the ability to listen and that is inclusive. I have those things. I have proven leadership. I also have what I would like to call, I'm not a politician. I'm not at all. I am like you. I am someone who sees things going on, and I'm just taking the opportunity. Now it's provided to us. 13 folks have done the same thing that have said, I want to help my city. I believe that what everyone is looking for is a representative. And in doing so, in that representative to be placed on city council, I believe that the priorities, because I've heard you, that we need to look at is to have a plan, to balance our budget, and to make sure that our streets are safe. Not only safe as far as police and fire, but of course safe as being able to have police and fire arrive safely to us without hitting a pothole and not arriving to us at all. The final point is I recognize that I don't have a whole lot of experience in Cheyenne. I'm the least resident here. I mean, I've been here for 8 years, the shortest amount of time. But what I don't have is enemies. I have friends. I'm looking forward to going out and meeting each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And can we give them a round of applause here? And here's an opportunity if anyone from the first group wants to come up and join these four people. If you have anything to add, or especially if you want to comment on something the group 2 has said, you're welcome to come up. And within, I'm not sure how we're going to time this. I guess we just ask you to be, terse, and Pat will use her judgment and wave her paddles with a warning, and she'll be very officious with her timing there. And I guess, does anyone at this point want to comment further, either on their own group or on what someone else has said? And we'll just look for people who want to. Oh, yes, Mr. Turner.
I was sort of tongue-in-cheek when I said I'd mentioned something, and Jeff kind of called me on it, and jokingly, that I don't have enemies. I guess what I'm saying is I don't really have anything against anyone. I am learning. I am developing as a citizen here, and I love learning. I love being a part of the city to raise my kids. So if anyone misunderstood what I was trying to say, I just wanted to clarify that. I know. I just wanted to
Can I say something?
Yes.
Remember Abraham Lincoln used to say, I'm not worried about my enemies. I'm worried about my darn friends.
All right. Thank you very much. Anybody else have anything to add or comment on what the candidates said? No? This is an opportunity to sort of wax eloquent, but no. Yeah, well, yes, Mr. Camargo.
One of the things I would like to add is, if elected, I would like to get better programs out there for the disabled, for disabled veterans, because right now it is very hard for the disabled, especially with the budget cuts, to find jobs, to get out there, and especially for disabled veterans, it's hard for them as well. And not only that, it's hard for them to find places to live. And I would like better programs out there for like this new low income development that is going up. Better programs to help the disabled and get at those apartments better.
Okay. Thank you. And I guess that's it then. Yes? Mr. Lee Warren.
Well, thank you for the opportunity, Marguerite. There's one point I'd like to make, and I think it's a very important one. What happens up here on the dais is not social. It doesn't matter if you like someone or they had a disagreement with someone. It's public business. And I think in a community this size, sometimes we get confused about that. And what I've seen over the years is way too much personality-driven politics that really has one person being the good person, the other person being the bad person, and an act that came before this body long time previously is still out there in the discussion. It's really critical that we understand coming into this tight budget situation that we really have to pull together, and we have to say personality is not what we're up here about. It's public business, and that means a different attitude than I've seen in the recent past.
All righty. Well, I guess that's a wrap. If unless there's someone who wants to add at this point. Other than that, again, can we give them a applause there? Thank you. And thank you to Tim Costello, who has been ultimately patient through all these, taking a recording. And please share those rebroadcast dates with your friends and your enemies, everyone you can. This was wonderful tonight, and we certainly want the voters to see it all before they have a chance to vote. So thank you very much.
Thank you for mentioning the creek, Rosalie. I appreciate that.